This is our third of the series of 4 conversations about Grundtvig and folk schools. And tonight, I don't want to take up much time, but Sune and Ingrid will reintroduce themselves for those of you that have not been able to make it in the past, and then talk about if folk schools are relevant today. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And let me know if I need to turn the volume up.
So my name is Sune Frederiksen. I grew up in Denmark, was born in Denmark, moved to the United States 30 years ago, and I have a dual citizenship, and I'm very happy about that. So people sometimes ask me, are you proud of being Danish? So I say, not really, but I'll tell you that I'm thankful. But what I'm proud of is that I moved to the United States because, I was born in Denmark. I had nothing to do with it. How can I be proud of it? It was my parents' fault. Or whatever you want to call it. But I moved to the United States. I tenured at a college. I had a semi-professional coaching career going. I was really running hard. And suddenly it stopped. I got a job at Berea College and decided to stay there, and later on apply for American citizenship. That's what I'm proud of. Can you see the difference from being thankful for something that you have nothing to do with? I had nothing to do with being Danish. It was my parents. But I had something to do with make my choice. So it's about choices very often that makes differences in your life. And I'm very happy I'm here today. There was also a choice because somebody pushed me a little bit, and I'm happy about that too. My dad.
Yes, hello. I'm not an American citizen. I'm just Danish. My name is Ingrid, and I've been here for a couple of days now, and I've just been wandering around seeing the workshops, and maybe some of you were here yesterday and some of you were not, so I'm going to just introduce myself a little bit for those of you who weren't here. I'm head of something called the Grundtvig Academy, and this is of course an academy that's very much interested in Grundtvig, who is we call him the founding father of the folk school. But basically he was in a way a lot more and a lot less, because he was never actually running a school himself, but he was doing lots of other things. He was a theologian, a pastor, a poet, a politician, taking part in the changes in Denmark, going from monarchy to democracy, and then he was an educational thinker and had many ideas about education. And today, yesterday we talked about the origins of the idea. Where did it come from? This idea about the folk school, and so in a way, yesterday we were looking back, and today we look maybe at the present, and we are to talk about the relevance of the folk school. Is it still relevant? And actually, that's a question that people often ask that question. I spend a lot of time talking about Grundtvig, and that's basically my job. And that is a question, but in a way, I think, of course, maybe I would say that, but of course he is relevant. And I would also say that actually the folk school and the idea of the folk school has maybe only been more relevant at the time where it was invented. I think maybe today is really a time where it is very, very relevant. So it's really now that it is a key issue to focus on. And maybe if it's okay, I'll say a few more words about that. Because I think, for one thing, I brought this book, and it's in Danish. It's actually translated into English, but I didn't manage to get it sent to me before I had to leave for here. It's a book by a person called Hal Koch, and the title is "What is Democracy?" And this guy Hal Koch, he wrote it just after the Second World War. He was a theologian like Grundtvig, but he was also an educational thinker, and he was inspired by Grundtvig. And he said something that I think is really important now as well, that no generation grows up knowing what democracy is. I mean, it's not something you are born with. So you have to learn it. And maybe there's something that we have forgotten. Maybe we have forgotten that this is something you need to learn. So maybe we have just been relaxing for too many years and thinking, oh, the world is going well, and we have forgotten this important knowledge that this is just something that you're not born with, so you have to learn it. And that is, in a way, I think is encouraging, because instead of thinking, okay, things are going a bit down the hill, today we have a climate crisis, we have a democracy crisis, we have lots of crises we can talk about. But instead of thinking, well, this is just how it must go, things go up and then they go down, then maybe this is just it, we forgot to learn this. So there's something that we need to learn. And that was basically the idea with the folk schools from the beginning, that there's something you need to learn. If you want to take part in a society, then you have to learn it. And Helcott was calling democracy a way of living. It's not just a way of running a country, it's a way of living. So there's something that we need to learn in our way of living. It's in the families, it's in the schools, it's in the societies that we learn this, and it could be on a folk school, because that was maybe what they were designed for. So in that sense, I think they are very relevant, and it's now. so I think it's an important time to just talk about this.
So maybe just put this one up, just a little bit about what Ingrid said, and you're most welcome to comment and ask questions, or you don't even have to talk to us, you can talk among yourselves and ask one another questions, because I know you have a lot of knowledge about your areas and maybe the world in general, and all of us have some approaches to various things. And the result of the conversation can be different. Can you hear what I say without the mic? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So here we have talking about the democratic process. And this morning, Ingrid and I, we talked about it's very important to dare to bring that up in the folk school environment and discussion. But maybe not just to hit one another in the head with a baseball bat, but to have an open dialogue about what it is. So it could actually be a class, also here at John C. Campbell Folk School. And we talked about democracies that are different. If you look at the democracy in the United States, it's very different from the democracy in Canada, and in England, and in Denmark, and in Germany, and in Israel, and in France. So, as a starting point, you can try to compare them and see where are these democracies different, and where do they agree on certain things. So you have a platform where you have a playground, where you have common knowledge, because you have just talked about it, or you have been educated about it, and you figure out, hey, this is very good. For example, in Israel, in order to get a member in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, you can elect one person. In Denmark, you have to elect at least 4. So it's about 2% of all the votes to get 4 seats in the Danish parliament. In the United States, it's totally different, because you have 2 chambers. And you have 2 chambers in the United Kingdom. But one of the chambers in the United Kingdom doesn't have a lot of power anymore. It used to be the one the House of the Lords. It used to be the one that was the most important. And in Germany, I think in order to be represented in the Bundestag, in the parliament, you have to win 5%. It means that it could be that 5% or more of the votes cast do not even count, would not get any representation. So I think it's very important to understand, when we talk about democracy, it's many things. And the old Greeks talked about democracy too. And they really agreed that it was great that men could be a part of the decision making, but not women. And if there were some slaves that were really, really good and loyal, so the top-notch slaves, they could have maybe a vote, but not the women, and so on. So we need to make sure we talk about the same things and have the ability and also dare to discuss which direction we want to go. What matters to the county of Cherokee, for example, and and the city councils and so on. And I know it's different in the United States. In New Jersey, you might find Ocean Court Borough, and here it will be the city of Murphy, maybe. I don't know how it works, but so we need to talk about the same things. And Ingrid just said there's too much ignorance, and people say it doesn't matter if I vote or not. It really does, especially if there's one vote that matters. You win 100 votes and your opponent win 99 votes, then it really matters. So we need to make sure that people understand, if you live in a democracy, what do you want to use it for? What, do you want to ignore it? Okay, then don't complain about stuff. Maybe you just want to be with the strongest, no matter who the strongest are, and they make decisions for you. And you have to understand, every time you don't make a decision, somebody else will make a decision for you. So that would be the two things we can discuss here. Do you want to comment?
No, I just think, I mean, also just from now walking around, looking at the workshops and also from the discussions in Denmark. I mean, there are lots of high schools and folk schools in Denmark, and a lot of young people go there, spending half of the year there, but also a lot of grown-ups go there for week courses, and I think one of the reasons why they go is in a way to escape a little bit, to get away, to feel, to get away from the life they're living, to get away from things that are going very fast, and to spend time using their hands, as people do here, and meet new people, feel relaxed, and it's all fantastic, and I think it's a fantastic thing. However, I think it's I mean, the interesting thing about, in a way, any school is that a school is kind of an experiment or a laboratory or something. It's a place out of the world. It's kind of, well, I step a bit back and experiment a little bit about things that I want to learn, which is fantastic. But it's also I think that you need to get out again. So it's like, well, what do you take with you? And then I think maybe the reason why the schools, the folk school tradition is important today is because it has this double side of feeling safe and not so safe. Because learning things should also, I think, should be a bit unsafe in a way. I mean, both the fact that, well, okay, you're struggling to learn something, can I make it? But also the fact that you're pushed out in groups with other people, and they might have opinions about things, and they might say things that you don't like, and I mean, and so in a way there's this kind of uncertainty or unsafeness about being on a school, and I think from what I met here, and it also says in the program and the introduction, that here there's a strong focus on feeling good, which is good. But I think maybe it's also important not to feel so good. I mean, not in the sense that you should feel, okay, this was a horrible experience. I think it's important to enjoy the atmosphere, but it's just also a question of, at least if you think about what was the intention with the schools, it was also to push people a little bit, to say, well, you need to bring something back. And I think that's maybe, I mean, for me it's interesting to hear someone saying that here you don't dive too much into religion and politics, which I understand. I totally understand why you don't. And I think there are schools in Denmark that would say the same. However, I think, maybe try it out just once in a while. And it doesn't have to be discussions about things where you feel like you need to split up, but I still think that this is maybe a key issue as well. And even I think maybe it's a chance when you have something between you, maybe not when you have the hammers and the knives, but maybe when you have the weaves or the food between you. I mean, that's a good occasion for talking, because it's a bit safer when you have something in between you. You're working with something, and then you can talk a little as well. So actually it's a way of having something. Sometimes in Danish we talk about a common third. Maybe you can say that in English as well. I mean, there's me, there's you, and then we're here together about something, and that's maybe a good occasion for talking. So I think just in addition to this, I think it's important to dare a little, as I'm sure you do here as well, to enter into what is a bit difficult, because the world needs it, I would say. Yeah.
So a good exercise, I was a social science teacher in Denmark at one point, and one of the good exercises I think the students liked, and what I liked too, was in Denmark you have maybe 13 or 15 political parties, and as of today maybe 11 of the parties are represented in the parliament. It means that no one for many, many years have had total majority. You need to learn how to negotiate, you need to learn how to have a dialogue in order to make good decisions. So a good exercise could be that the students represents, in the classroom, represents a political party that they disagree with. And you have to argue for that party's points of view. And I think that really opens up the brain and the crater inside your head. Because they have to say things that they don't believe in. And very often what students believe in is what their parents believe in. So I think it's our duty to help brighten and widen their horizon. So if they like to participate in that, and some of them are really totally into it, and afterwards we can have a discussion. What is good and what is bad from your point of view. But first, you need to realize what your opponent's arguments are. And I think that has been very successful from my point of view, even though it's many years ago.
I have two more points about why is it relevant today. So the first one was this, that there's something that we've just forgotten. I mean, we need to learn things again, and that's just, I mean, that's just how it is. But another thing that I think is why are the schools, the folk school tradition relevant, and why is Grundtvig relevant today? And that's actually that's a quote I very often use when I talk about Grundtvig's relevance. It's a quote by a professor from the UK who said that Grundtvig managed to square the circle. Between traditionalist or a respect for local culture and then a more liberal approach approach to a more progressive approach, you can say, or insisting on freedom. So this kind of squaring the circle between roots and wings, you could also say, between respecting the fact that people connect to things, people connect to what is local and what is traditional and the history and the places they belong. And to respect that, and to respect that we, of course, look backwards. I mean, that's what it is to be human. You look backwards a bit. I mean, you're connected to something that you inherit. You inherit your language, you inherit so many things. And combining that, which is something that I feel like we almost think is impossible, combining that with a more progressive approach to the world, saying, well, things can change and things do change, and you have to make space for even the mad people or the crazy people or the people who have the ideas that I don't like, or this kind of double-sidedness, which I feel that we almost think is impossible. And you can see it if you look at democracies around the world. You can see in Denmark, lots of countries in Europe, you can see there's a split between people who are more connected, more rooted, more connected to tradition, religion, and then people mostly living in cities who are a bit more progressive in a way, or at least in their own mind they're progressive. And this kind of split, and these people who can almost not find out how to talk to each other. And then it's like, well, is it possible to square this circle? And I think it really is why is it relevant? I think that is it. It's because in places like this, it's really a respect for what is rooted, but still with an open mind. And that is really needed, I think. And I think, I mean, Grundtvig is not the only one. This is just because I study Grundtvig, so I think, I mean, this is perfect. Grundtvig said, or he didn't say that, but this professor said that, and I think it fits, that he squared the circle. But I think you can definitely think of other thinkers today. I mean, I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she's in a way American, Hannah Arendt, which I talk about her as a German philosopher, but of course she's also American. She's in a way the same, and she's a very popular philosopher today. People read her a lot, and she has this same kind of, in a way she's a very conservative thinker, but at the same time she's very much focusing on how to bring in new ideas, how to change things, how to start up things, and this combination of being connected to the past and then being open. I think that's basically it's important, and it's important also because if you tell people they should not connect to what they are connected to, I mean, that is really stupid. So I think it's important to be able to have this bridge between what is and what I see in many countries as splitting, and in America as well. Yeah. So that's why it's relevant to come to the folk school as well, because there you do magic and have this kind of squaring the circle all the time, which I think is important.
Do you have any comments or questions? Feel free, yes, please.
What do you mean by squaring the circle?
Well, I mean, first of all, doing what is in a way impossible. Yeah. but that was just her quote, this Professor Linda Woodhead saying that Grundtvig, he squared the circle between liberalism and respect for local and tradition, local culture and tradition. But I think why she said it is because it often seems impossible in a way. I think we have a tendency to regard people as either rooted people who are very connected to where they live and they never move anywhere, or we have the very progressive people who live in the cities and are very globally orientated, and it seems like those people cannot fit into one. However, I think the way Grundtvig was thinking about rootedness was in a very open-minded way, respecting both the fact that you are connected to the past, but you have to make, he would say, you have to make a society where freedom is the baseline in a way. Freedom to invent things, freedom to even say stupid things, freedom to discuss things, and then meet and discuss this and disagree. And this kind of openness and rootedness is something that is both difficult and important. So in that sense, I think it's a good way of saying it, to square the circle, because I think to many people this seems almost impossible, and that's maybe making us lose hope in a way. So I think well, you just need to square the circle, basically, yeah. But I think it's happening. I mean, it is happening on the folk schools. If you look at and other places as well. But if you look at the schools in, I mean, I'm mostly familiar with the schools in Denmark and a few in Europe and also in the East. But I've not been to folk schools here either than this one. But if you look at them, that is what is happening. I mean, a respect for identity, but also a curiosity and openness. And I think that's, in a way, it is happening. I mean, not in a perfect way, but it is. Yeah.
Yes, please.
I appreciate your emphasis on having open discussions and trying to listen to each other and having that dialogue. Seems to me that's critically important. In my life, what I've experienced in the U.S. side is that there are times when it's impossible to even agree on the facts. It's been called alternative facts and things like that, and that's very baffling how that can happen. But people get dug into those positions, and I think a second aspect of that idea is that with the connectedness or the use of internet and information that's electronic, the way it's programmed nowadays, it seems to me that you ask questions or you look at certain things and then it feeds you more of that same thing. There's this echo chamber that you get stuck in, so that all of your beliefs, right or wrong, good or bad, are reinforced so that you are more entrenched in your position and less willing to listen to other people's points of view. One of the benefits that I find, and some friends of mine who are here in this folk school have said, what I experience is that you do unplug and you focus on basket weaving or cooking or photography, and you're not thinking about all that, and you're not looking in your echo chamber, and it lets your mind deflate, and you sort of get a reset here. I think that would be interesting to hear your comments if that's true at other folk schools, or if the issues are the same.
Well, first of all, I think the problem that you describe is something that I don't hope I have a solution for. You expect me to have a solution for, because that is really a serious problem. But I think with the folk schools, and that's maybe also why it's a bit difficult if people come here as you do here in a week course, because in a way you need to get away. And if you both need to get away, but you also need to dig into heavy political conversations, I mean, it's too much in a week in a way. So it's just, however, I still think that, I mean, that is really why they are important today, this type of schools, and there should be 500 more of them in the US, because, and everywhere, because we need to meet. People need to meet and realize that, okay, we share the same reality in a way. I mean, maybe we can discuss the facts, but at least we are in the same world. And that's really, yeah. Yeah.
It can be difficult to start folk schools if in, let's say, in Arizona or New Mexico, if you don't know the basis for the thinking of the mission, if you can use that word, for folk schools. But yesterday I mentioned maybe the activity that people do is more important than the name of the folk school. So they can call it community courses. And they are all over America too, but maybe not organized in the same way. So there are many options. There are actually many options in America to get in adult education or adult courses at different universities like here.
Yeah, but what do you think yourself, if I can ask back? I mean, is it possible? Because in a way, I totally understand that when you go to places like this, you need to get away. So is it possible to, in a way, square that circle as well, to do both? I don't know.
Well, we do have a mix here, don't we? We have some people from the community who are more country oriented, we have other people coming in from the city, so you have that mix. You also have old and some young, more old than young, but there are young people, and you can talk about people from different locations, different parts of our country. So I've had the opportunity over meals, as you say, to discuss a few political things, and it's been interesting for me to get other people's perspectives, and I hope that they also found my perspective to be useful to consider and just chew on. So there is a mixing that goes on here.
You can also ask yourself, what is success? What is a success story for a folk school in America, if we talk about America? This is the land of contrasts. It's a land of very mixed population, lots of immigrants, lots of poor people, lots of rich people. And what is happening now, it seems like the middle class is shrinking a little bit. And I think the middle class is the class, if we talk about classes, that is the class that carries any country in the world. With a shrinking middle class, societies can collapse. What was it I wanted to say? How do you measure success? How do you measure success for this school? How do you measure success for the Danabut folk school in Tyler, Wisconsin or Minnesota? How do you measure the folk school that only meets on Mondays in Louisville, Kentucky, that plays music? How do we measure it? It seems like John C. Campbell Folk School, I noticed actually the ones who created the website has been very, very smart, because it's folkschool.org. All right? So if you look for a folk school in America, John C. Campbell Folk School will show up across North America, across the world. I think that's pretty neat. So that's about marketing. But John C. Campbell Folk School also started from a different point, with cows out here in the fields, maybe chickens and agriculture and everything. And it was mainly for poor people, or people who needed education, or people who needed a break. And if you look at the courses today, it's not necessarily people who needs a break, or who needs a lot more education. I think a lot of the people here are already pretty educated. So what's the target groups? Okay, that's very important too. Are we missing someone who should actually be here at John C. Campbell Folk School today and take courses, but they can't afford it, or they are too far away, or are the courses wrong? I think there's a great opportunity for interns to exchange for labor and then take courses. That's wonderful. But you need to play back, you need to play a little table tennis here. I'll play a ball to you, you play a ball to me. What are you thinking? Because has it become more a business, or is it also serving everyone who really wants to come here? It's a difficult question, but it might be a question you need an answer for, or at least talk a little bit about it. There was one case.
The Campbell Folk School is privately funded, and my impression is that most of the schools in Denmark have public support. So there are ways that you could start a school in the U.S., charter schools, for example, but that's had mixed results, because charter schools have become a way to reduce support for other public schools. So to me, that's one of the big questions about where we go from this. But
Do you have comments?
Yeah, to
me, I mean, it may seem strange, but to me, the folk school is not about the crafts or the learning how to weave or whatever. I come here for community, because I don't find this sort of community where I live. Been coming for about 10 years. I actually sit at dinner and talk to people and look in their eyes, and I learn about their families, and I learn about what matters to them. That is why I come. And it's about the people connection. It's about the connection with my instructors, but especially my classmates.
We can be both, though. We can be both of those things. We can teach high-quality craft and build community at the same time. I think that's what we try to do.
Yes, yeah.
Where are you from?
Michigan.
I know it was a provocative question, but that's what folk schools are. Just want to underscore that. If we don't ask these questions, we don't stir the pot.
Actually, I've only known Sune for 3 days now, 2 days. But one thing I've learned is that Sune used to be a very active sportsman. What we talked a little bit about is competition. Because here people say, well, this is non-competitive. And we talked a little bit about competition. It's interesting because actually in Denmark there's this saying people sometimes say, and that's maybe the people that are not so fond of Grundtvig, they say that it is his fault that the children in Denmark, they don't really learn enough in school because they just sit down in circles and talk to each other, and that's Grundtvig. That's because of Grundtvig. He made us all just sit and talk in circles, and we forgot to be ambitious, and that is because of Grundtvig. And that has been a way that even politicians have said, well, this is a big mistake, this whole tradition of being non-competitive. And I mean, fair enough, but actually it's wrong, because when you look at Grundtvig's writings, which I find very interesting, is his way of insisting at the time of insisting on an exam-free school, saying there should be no exam, no marks, no grades, no strict curriculum. However, he's actually not against competition. So he actually he's not against this idea that, or this maybe very human thing, that you sit next to a person and say, well, she's very good at this, I want to be just as good as her. So this kind of ambition he's not against. So in a way that's it's a wrong accusation that it's not his fault if the Danish children don't learn enough. However, it's a complicated thing, this with competition, I think, because if you look at the visits that I get in where I work in Copenhagen, we get a lot of people coming from abroad, and in particular we have a lot of visits, we have a lot of guests coming from Korea, and it's very often groups of teachers, and they come there to learn about the free school tradition in Denmark, both the folk schools but also what is called the efterskole, which is kind of a folk school, but it's for younger people.
It's a boarding school.
Oh, it's a boarding school, but a specific kind of folk school inspired boarding school, and very many young people go there as well. My daughter's there right now, actually, my youngest daughter. And they come there, these teachers from Korea, and they want to learn something else. Not that they don't have it in Korea, but they also have, as you probably know, a very competitive system, and it's really tough. And you have young people committing suicide because they don't pass the exam, or they don't pass it with good enough marks, etc., etc. So it's really tough, and they're searching for something else, and inspired by a school system where we teach the students to wait for each other. Okay, we're not going to start yet because everyone is not here, and this kind of learning, which is important as well. However, I would say that also in Denmark there has been a stronger focus on results the last couple of maybe 15 years, and we hear children now saying that, well, I'm so annoyed with the boy or girl sitting next to me because he's very bad at math, so he's like dragging me down. It's like, well, that was not the point of sending you there. The whole point is also to, well, learn math, but also learn being together with other people. So this competitive thing we talked about, and maybe you can add something from the sports world, because it's like, well, is it good or bad, or can you find somewhere in between where you are ambitious but you're still not competitive in the harsh way?
Well, I can say I would never have come to John C. Campbell Folk School more than 30 years ago if it had been for competitive sports. I came here because it was about not only non-competitive sport, but it was also developing community in an environment where you could play tennis or bridge or soccer in a way where you would do your best and would play to win without getting $10,000 for it, but have the enjoyment and the joy of participating. There's no fun playing a table tennis game 3 or 5-0, depending on how many sets you play, and the other one will always get an 8 or 0. There's no fun in that. So we also want to find peers that is about your same level, maybe even better, maybe a little bit better. So when you play against somebody who's really, really weak, that is really non-competitive. But it is also a way to get the other one to get better and have enjoyment. So in Denmark we have this huge gymnastics. It's mainly what we would call general gymnastics. It's not Olympic gymnastics. It might be the big sport in Denmark. And my mom, she went to these exercise classes till she was maybe 82 or something like that. And she would jump from the 3-meter board in the public pool till she was 78. And that was just the sisu, the Finnish word sisu. They want to do stuff and to do it for yourself, but also encourage other people to do it. And you meet these groups of people, and you will have the big rallies, maybe in the summer, maybe in the spring, where people meet. And that's where the community also came. And people from different towns would come, and after they had been doing their gymnastic exercises, they would sit down and have coffee, and they would have Danish, and they would have a good time, and then they would go home. And maybe some of them would do it 3 times a week, maybe once a week. That's where it's important to differ between non-competitive sport and competitive sport. But what I'm missing sometimes is a word for what is in between, where you can grow just because you want to grow. And in Danish we have a word called breddeidræt, and it means that it is for the wider population who will never become international stars, or they want more than non-competitive sport. So I don't know if you know what I mean, but I think it's very important to compete. And I remember one person told me one time, I told you this morning, without competition, we do not develop enough. You might attack that statement because there's something in it that is maybe it feels wrong from a community point of view, but still there might be a lot of truth to it. So you're being pushed a little bit here and there. How can I get better? But I think sport is very important. Last night we had a dance. It's a non-competitive sport, right here, right there. Last night, it's non-competitive. It's participation, and maybe that was the word I was looking for. Communal participation is very, very important. It builds strong communities. And this morning I looked out from a balcony I saw the mountains in the background, and I saw how peaceful and pastoral it was, and I thought, man, maybe I should retire here. That's fantastic. I don't even have to walk the dogs at 7:15, in the morning. And then I was reminded of a book for adolescents I read many, many years ago in a college class. It was written about a Swedish writer called Astrid Lindgren. It was called...
The one with Pippi Longstocking. People who know Pippi Longstocking.
You know Pippi Longstocking? She wrote this book too. And it was called The Brothers Lionheart. And I looked up there and I said, well, I'm in a very, very peaceful community here in Murphy, in Browstown, in Cherokee County. And it was just so peaceful. But in the book, suddenly I saw the soldiers on the mountaintops, slowly moving down to this community that was almost asleep but had the routines and didn't need to do anything else than having a good time, plowing the soil, cultivating the land, and do whatever was important to survive and have a good time. But these soldiers on horseback suddenly came down from the hillside and took over, slaughtered the people. Some of them escaped, the two brothers, Lionhearts, and they had to figure out what happened here. And they escaped in the woods, and after a while, they figured out that they actually need to fight back, and they needed to get some groups together. And in the end, as you might know, the good people won, and they were able to have a rebellion against the bad people. But looking out of the mountains, that was my thought. This is really fantastic. And then I saw what she wrote in her book many, many years ago. So where do you feel calm? Where do you feel safe? And what do you do to challenge yourself to say, this can't be so good all the time. There must be some forces from the outside that might want what you have. And there might be people who would like to have what you have here at John C. Campbell Folk School. But you need to discuss what is it we want to do. Where, and this is a difficult one, where do we want John C. Campbell Folk School to be in 30 years? It is so difficult to discuss that because many of you won't be here, I won't be here, but you want to build legacy too. All right. Yeah, please.
I've been involved with the school for my entire adult life, so I have a lot of opinions about all of this, and I won't share them all right now, but I do want to say a couple things. One is that we have a collective memory here that we try to foster and pass on, so that those people that are coming in now can learn from those of us that have been here for a while, and they'll be the ones that help keep the our folk school similar to the way it is now in 30 years, and hopefully in 50 years, and maybe in 100 years. We have a non-competitive spirit, but it's because we want to nurture creative growth in individuals that are coming into an environment that might be unfamiliar to them, and that they need to not be judged as they try new things. But I do think that we have a group ambition, which is it's not competitive necessarily, but it is a desire to be really good at what we're doing as a group. And in classrooms that happens just because people are having such a good time learning together, and they want to learn the best they can while they're there, and they count on each other as well as the instructor to take them there. But we also have the closest thing that we have to sports is dance, of course, and we have performance dance groups that work together really hard to develop their style and to become good at what they do, and then they go out into the world and share it without trying to be better than somebody else that they're sharing it with. So I think both of those things can exist harmoniously, and I think that being non-competitive is the way that we can explain it quickly to people who are maybe coming from a background where they have to be the best at what they're doing and they don't want somebody else to be better than them in a particular class. So, I don't know, those are my immediate thoughts about.
So we're the best non-competitive.
That's right, we
school.
talk about that all the time. We've won awards at big.
No, but, oh, please.
No. When I think about competitiveness and ambition, I think about the roots of it. Maybe I'm getting too deep. Being resource scarcity. If you think about the roots of competitiveness and ambition, and we are creating that classroom space that says we're not short on the resources, or there's no scarcity here, and people will still be competitive, but it's often just with themselves, and it's that ambition to be better at the thing than they were before. And so that's pretty much what you just said. But then I had to talk.
There's more than, guess what? There's more than one way to say the same thing. We talk about that a lot here.
Yeah, but I totally understand why it's something that you focus very much on. I totally agree that it's a good idea, and it's a strong signal in a way to say, well, this is how we do it. And I think maybe the reason why I bring it up is because there's some food for thought in it. Because if you look at, if you look at the political discussions in Denmark, you have politicians that claim to be a man of the people or woman of the people, and the way they do that is by showing off how normal they are. And by saying normal, it means that they're very sort of down on the ground. I can go and watch football, I can have a beer, I can, and it's a way of signaling then and showing to the people that, well, I'm just one of you. And it's just interesting that when you look at the way that Grundtvig thought about being a people, it's actually where you stand on your toes. It's not where you just lower down and just easy here. It's people who stand on their toes because they want to be responsible and live their lives and understand the world. And so there's something intriguing in this, I think, because maybe we talk, in Danish, we talk about being folkelig, or being one of the people in a different way than he did, even though people often refer to Grundtvig saying, I'm folkelig, the way that Grundtvig was, but actually the way Grundtvig used the word was to, well, stand up a bit, be a bit ambitious in a way, and maybe not in the sense of being competitive, maybe more in the sense that you described, that, well, we here together, we want to stand on our feet and not just be on the ground. So I just think there's something interesting there. Well, can you be ambitious? And I hope in a way you are wrong, saying that maybe we can be curious and ambitious without competition sometimes, even though, of course it's there as well. But I think there's something important there in a way, and I totally understand why it's a strong focus here to be non-competitive.
Call it what you will. It's our way to protect and nurture strangers and to help strangers get along in a short amount of time.
Yes, it makes good sense, yeah.
So the Danish word folkelig would be something like popular and good for the common people together. That's probably what it covers.
Yeah, this whole, today we talk about popularity and commonness, but the way, not that Grundtvig is the answer to everything, I'm not saying that, it's just interesting because people refer to him saying, well, he was a man of the common people. However, he wanted the common people to stand up on their feet. So that's very important, I think. And this split between elite and common people, he didn't see that. He saw, well, the common people, they need to just get up, and I think maybe that's something to learn from as well.
So time is running a little bit. Do we want to talk about a little bit about sustainability?
Well, yeah, that was my third point, or maybe yours as well. That why is it relevant? And I think maybe that goes back to what you do here a lot, work with your hands, and this this folk school tradition of having, we talked about that yesterday as well for people who were there, this equality between head and body. This focus on, well, it's important both to use your head and your hands, and actually to maybe even connect that, and I think that's really a chance that the folk schools have to show a way of working with materials and in a way that is sustainable, and in a way that is joyful at the same time. Well, you realize, okay, it's fantastic what I can do with a piece of wood, and where does that wood come from, and where did it grow, and things like that. And I think that's really that connects to the feel good, but it also connects to key problems in the world. So that's kind of a win-win in a way, because it's like, well, this is just something we do here because we want to spend some time gardening or working with our hands, but it's actually connected to what is really important, slowing down and respecting materials.
Yeah, and then we talked about using the materials. It matters to the ones who deliver the material to here. It matters to where they get it from. So it's a part of the big city. If you look at a tree and the wood turning classes or whatever, it comes from somewhere. So what you use here has an impact somewhere else. Somebody makes a living out of delivering something to you. Here, it's very important to understand too, and the food industry, it's a huge operation here. You know, if you have 140 people plus staff who are being served food every day, it's a huge operation, and the food comes from somewhere. So I just try to put the trash down. What do you do with the trash? Is that something that is being recycled? I heard the other day you don't want Jersey cows any longer, but maybe you want a pig farm, because they really like a lot of stuff from the kitchen afterwards. It's just a sight. But what is your attitude, approach to recycling stuff from the workshops and from the kitchen? And do you sort it? Do you sort plastic from food, things like that? And if you don't, why not? But you have to think about it. You don't need to
Oh,
answer.
if you need an answer, we did start recently doing that. We have just like downhand sort. And we have volunteers to do that.
You're working on it.
We're working on it.
It's a perfect place to do that in a way, because you really get a sense of, okay, it takes a while to produce things, and that, I think that's an interesting thing.
The garden project is growing dye materials and basketry and materials, and we provide food for sure. So some of our food comes from the garden. We have wood lots for wood for our various projects. I don't know if we're digging our own clay, but we have a solar operation. All the buildings are solar powered, most of them now. I mean, that sustainability has definitely been something people are thinking about. I don't want to be the only one that speaks up. There's plenty of people that could answer these questions. Our gardener is teaching his first full week-long class this week, Jason, but he's worked very hard to deal with all of these.
All right. So I think Ingrid started saying this: every generation has to learn what we learned. Whether it's about democracy and Nanette, you were on it too right away. We try to pass on to the next generation, so we know something is happening in 30 years or 50 years. So that's really good. But I don't know if you agree with that or not. Some people say, okay, this is my life, when it's gone, it's gone. And other people say, I have a big family. I want to ensure that our grandchildren have a good life too, and maybe some money in the bank after we have passed away. I want to ask, are there more questions? Otherwise, I would like to do two things. Or you want to give something away?
Yeah, but please go ahead.
Two things. I would like somebody to take a photo of the group, come up here, with me and Ingrid. But I want to tell you about a story. Because I told you yesterday that 300,000 Danes had actually moved to the United States from 1840 to 1910 or something like that. One of them was Jens Christian Jensen. And he came from northern Jutland, and he was tired of being poor, and he sold everything he had. It was enough for a ticket to the United States. And he came to New York by boat, and he had money enough to buy an old stallion, 22 years old. It was named Oscar. So he got in his saddle, traveled towards the west, ended up in Oklahoma, and he went into a bar. And he ordered a glass of milk because that was what he knew. Everyone else was drinking bourbon and whiskey and rye. And he had a good time. He said hello to some people. And then he went out again because he was ready to move on. And he saw that his horse had been painted zebra stripes. And he got angry. And he went inside the saloon and said, "Who painted my horse with zebra stripes?" And people looked around, and then this big, gigantic guy got up from a table. I would say his shoulders were that wide. He was that tall. And Jens Christian Nielsen said to him, "I just want to tell you, it's ready for the second coat."